So, I've never actually played Dungeons & Dragons. I think that when I started to hear about it, I was well into my teenage years, and I just didn't care enough to try it. The closest I came to any remote interest in the game was probably from a couple episodes of The Big Bang Theory, or in Stranger Things Season 4. But anyway, you know I like movies, and while I haven't seen the adaptation from the 2000s, and probably never will, the new film to be adapted from the game, and brought to the big screen, is Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. A movie that, while it's open about the fact that it emasculates men, because, you know, Hollywood, managed to spike my curiosity nonetheless with some good trailers, a solid cast, and because it was the only fantasy movie that's come out in about a decade. Anyway, the movie stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Sophia Lillis, Justice Smith, Regé-Jean, I don't fucking know, and Hugh Grant. And it follows a group of adventurers as they embark on an epic quest to retrieve a long-lost relic, but their adventure goes dangerously awry when they come into conflict with the wrong people. So, let's just touch on the elephant in the room, shall we? Emasculating men. We see it all the time in modern films, and at this point, it's about as predictable as someone's political ideology when they have dyed hair. You see it everywhere now, and it's honestly quite a rare occurrence to find a film that doesn't somewhat dumb down a male character in order to bring a female character to the forefront, just for that character to be, you know, incredibly dislikable, or just way too good at everything for us to even consider that she's ever remotely in danger. It's become very repetitive, and is damaging a lot of films, but thankfully, this film at least does something right, and that was making the characters likeable. That's right, I liked them. Honestly, there was never actually an instance where I thought to myself, you know, considering that this is meant to be, a main protagonist in the film, they really do piss me off. Quite the revelation, I know, but the characters each had their own flaws, all had challenges to overcome, and all somehow brought a smile to my face at some point or another. And to be honest, just being aware that the male characters in this film are going to act like children for the majority of the time, and then just kind of accepting it and allowing the story to unfold, made for a much better experience than I expected, because Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is actually a pretty good movie. While of course it has its elements that I'm not too fond of, and while it's also honestly quite predictable, it still came to be a very well written story with likeable characters, solid messages to take away, and honestly just a really fun time. I never found myself uninterested in what was going on or where the story was going, because there was always a goal that the characters were trying to achieve or a next step that they wanted to get to, and seeing the characters navigate their way through places like villages and forests, the mystical and mysterious terrain, allows for some interesting and creative ideas to be brought to life that worked really well within the context of the story and were really fun to witness. When it came to the characters, while all being very likeable, they also each had their own unique personality and skill set, and seeing how they worked as a group, and each used their own abilities to look out for one another on this crazy journey that we embark on, is really great stuff. You have Edgin, who's the planner, Holger, who's the fighter, Doric, who's the shapeshifter, Simon, who's the sorcerer, and for an enjoyable segment of the story, Zenk, who in summary is exactly the kind of man that you'd want to be if you lived in a fantasy world. Simple as. I mean, just look at the man. Now, don't get me wrong, Edgin, of course, has a very silly personality, but his values and what he wants to achieve is only fair, and deep down, he's basically just a man trying to redeem his past, desperate to fulfill a purpose, and outside of all the jokes, he just wants a family again, and you see the moments where he genuinely thinks that their plan might not work, and it only makes him more and more determined to keep moving forward and fulfill his duty. He's a fun and well-intentioned character, and Chris Pine is great in the role. I also really enjoyed Holger, who's also a great presence on screen, being very much the, more masculine than the man-woman of the story, sure, but unlike where so many other films fall flat, this character isn't some arrogant and obnoxious Mary Sue, but instead has an established background with her fighting, and while being a joy to watch when she's in action, also really cares about the people around her, and is the sidekick that Edgin very much needed, and has formed a very close bond with, and the chemistry between the two comes off as very natural. You can tell that these two characters have known each other for quite some time, and it adds an extra layer to the realism of the story that just makes it that bit more enjoyable. Honestly, all the characters have great chemistry, and one of my favourite parts of the movie was that with Zenk, who helps the team on their journey and basically serves as a role model to all of the characters for a brief time, and, just the fact that he's not a feminised man was at least a breath of fresh air to the story. Hugh Grant is also in this movie, oddly enough, having evidently in recent years kind of shifted away from the rom-coms, and he's gone on to try many different roles, and he plays a man in this film kind of like an evil version of Edgin, with the same bubbly personality, but without the morality. He's that wealthy douchebag that's just so dislikable that you actually kind of come to enjoy their presence on screen, and as I say, Hugh Grant, man, great stuff. Now, someone that I wish they explored a bit more was Safina, who's secretly a wizard and basically wants to enslave the entire population around her, but she was actually quite a fascinating character. Very quiet, very deceitful, and secretly very powerful, and I wish that we could have just been with her character a bit more throughout, but I guess that there's an opportunity for spin-offs and sequels if this movie does well, because Hollywood. But anyway, if you're looking for a fun fantasy and adventure tale that you can get lost in, and have yet to see the movie so far, I would honestly suggest that you give it a go and see what you think. I mean, the reviews speak for themselves, and while there's parts of the movie that I don't like, I can't deny that it's an above average film, to say the least. It's doing pretty well at the box office, all things considered, and if this means that we get more of the fantasy genre in the near future, then I'm all for it. Superhero fatigue, or just shit storytelling, has definitely kicked in, so more stories like this are definitely a warm welcome. So, thank you for sticking through the video. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. It's up to you though, of course. And I will see you in the next one very, very soon.